We read from John 10. Most assuredly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Yet they will by no means follow a stranger, but will flee for him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this illustration, but they did not understand the things which he spoke to them. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and go in and out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. How do you take it when someone says, if you know it's good for you? Well, that makes most people bristle. That them saying that they know what's good for you better than you do. Even kids don't take it well. If you know what's good for you, you'll eat that broccoli or those Brussels sprouts. And the kids think, this is not good for me, this is awful. Then we get older, and we get worse. Someone says, that's not good for you, and you bristle going, how dare you? The truth is, we don't know what's good for us. The people in the text that Jesus was talking to, they didn't know what was good for them. That's absolutely true for spiritual things, and it's mostly true even for earthly things. Psychiatrists, therapists have noticed over and over again that people desire and do things that are bad for them. Often, they know they are bad for them, and they still do it. You know, psychiatrists have been trying to understand and figure out why we do this. They've been trying to figure this out according to their evolutionary thinking, and they have failed terribly because they're trying to figure it out according to their evolutionary thinking. If evolution was true, we shouldn't choose things that weaken us, that make us unhappy, that hurt our species. But of course, evolution did not happen. Instead, we have de-evolution. We were once perfect, and then we fell into sin, and now even as Christians, the thing that we know is good, the thing that we wish that we desired, we often don't. The evil that we know is evil, and we wish we didn't desire, that's the thing we desire. We know it, and we still do it. Why? Because we are sick, twisted creatures. I was once just recently reading an article about this, about why so many women choose bad men. And by the way, I'm not saying any of you chose bad men. But this article was researching this, all the reasons women choose bad men. One of them was that women like to feel needed. And if a man has glaring flaws, they really feel needed. And as an added bonus, they discovered, you can then concentrate all your might on thinking about the flaws of the other person instead of flaws of yourself. Another reason that researchers discovered was that most women apparently find nice guys boring. They are predictable. They don't do exciting, crazy, wild, adventurous things. Another one is that people accept the love they think they deserve. And many people think that they deserve to be treated badly, so they find people who treat them badly. That's some pretty messed up stuff, isn't it? And I'm not just saying that it's only women who have problems. Men obviously have their corresponding issues. Like choosing a woman who has the personality of a toadstool, but she's hot. Messed up. We are sick, twisted creatures who don't know what's good for us. The people in the text that Jesus was talking to didn't know what was good for them. So we hear this morning what is good for us. And what is it we hear? We hear the voice of our shepherd. That is what is good for us. And what he tells us and what he does for us, that is what is good for us. His voice is what teaches us what's good for us. His voice is what makes us his sheep so that we recognize his voice in his call. But he called us by name, made us his sheep in baptism, in his gospel. We came to know his voice and to follow it and gained life abundantly. And so we're reminded this morning, because we still have a sinful nature, a sick, twisted sinful nature which desires all kinds of things that are bad for us. We're reminded this morning of what's good for us. The voice of our shepherd. And we should stop there for a moment and perhaps talk about this allegory in our text, about all this sheep in the sheepfold. There were, of course, many, many shepherds in Israel, and they would take their sheep out for pasture during the day, and then at night they bring them to the sheepfold. And it wasn't just one flock in the sheepfold. Many, many shepherds would share this big enclosure that was protected by thorny bushes or by stone. And then there would only be one person watching them over the night. That way in the enclosure they'd be safe from predators, safe from thieves, safe from wandering away, and they all didn't have to stay up all night watching their sheep. Just one person could. In the morning then the shepherd would come. He'd come to the gate, because he had every right to, and he would call his sheep, and they would come. Why would the sheep come? Because they knew his voice. They knew that voice was good for them. They knew that person would do what was good for them, take care of them. And so they gladly came. Now, I've never experienced this firsthand, but I've heard that sheep are really skittish. So if it's a stranger, it's a voice they don't know, they don't come. They are scared. We know the voice of our shepherd. We know it because he taught us it in our baptism. When he brought us to faith, he made us his sheep, and he became our shepherd. And we came to know that he cares for us, and that he only does what is good for us, and gives us life abundantly. What about someone who climbs over the fence? What do they give us? What are their intentions? Who are they? Well, the context of our text, Jesus was speaking specifically about the Pharisees. The verses right before this, he's talking to the Pharisees, and continues to talk to the Pharisees in chapter 10. And right before this, he says to the Pharisees that they are blind, which they didn't like. He then goes on to explain to them what they are like, and they, as our text says, they didn't understand what he was saying. If they had understood what he was saying, they would have been even more incensed, more angry. He was saying that they were thieves and murderers who came to destroy. If they had understood that, they would have gone, that's not true. Well, let me ask you. If you have a home intruder who comes into your home and takes all your money and ruins you that way, but he didn't come to ruin you, what did he come to do? He came to make himself richer. The outcome is just that he ruined you. Is there any real difference? There isn't. Whether his purpose was to ruin you or just to enrich himself, you're still ruined. That's what these Pharisees were like. They were not the shepherd of the sheep. They had come over the wall. They despised these people. They despised the people of Israel as ignorant and poor They despised them as lesser Christians. Well, not so much Christians as lesser children of Abraham. The word Christian didn't exist, and they didn't follow Christ, of course, the Pharisees. But why were these people ignorant and poor? Because they, the Pharisees, who were supposed to take care of them, hadn't taught them, didn't take care of their earthly or spiritual needs. And yet they would accept from the poor people of Israel their praise and their money, all the while despising them. They were ruining the sheep of Israel. They were there to fleece them. We have a great example of how the Pharisees came to kill and destroy with Judas. When he came to them, Good Friday, saying, I have sinned against innocent blood. What was it they said? They who were supposed to be the shepherds of Israel. They said, what is it to us? You see to it. Was there ever a sheep more in need of help? And yet they wouldn't even give him the time of day. They were thieves and murderers who came to kill and destroy. Even if that wasn't their intention. Even their intention, as they would, was only to enrich themselves, only to make more money and gain more honor and prestige for themselves. The outcome was that they killed souls and killed people. Now you might ask, why would anyone follow such a false teacher? Such a terrible shepherd who isn't a shepherd, but a thief and a murderer. Why would anyone follow such a person? Well, first of all, we should point out, as Jesus says in our text, that Jesus' true sheep didn't, at least in the end. Maybe for many years of their life, they followed such false shepherds, following the promises that they offered. But eventually, they came to know their true shepherd's voice and followed Jesus. But as to why some do follow such false shepherds, let me ask you. If you're a 17-year-old girl who wants, as a Disney princess once said, I think, adventure in the great wide open, who's more exciting? A boy who comes to your window and throws rocks at it and wants you to sneak out to go see this band playing, or a guy who comes in the middle of the day, makes small talk with your mother about weather, and has a Bible study? Who's more exciting? Who's more fun? The Pharisees looked way more fun and exciting than Jesus. We're told that. There was nothing outwardly desirable about Jesus that we would follow him. He didn't have wondrous clothes. His disciples didn't live on the hog. They weren't rich and had it good. They had it bad. But if you got in good with the Pharisees, they would open all kinds of doors for you. They could make you rich and wealthy and respected. They were glamorous. Who cares if they didn't care for you? They looked cool. But there was nothing desirable outwardly about Jesus. He was not fun. That, at least according to our sinful nature. Our sick, twisted, sinful nature, which even non-believers can see, desires all kinds of things that are bad for us. We are reminded this morning what is good for us. The voice of our good shepherd is what's good for us. He called us out from all the other sheep of this world to be his own. And this is the greatest good. Not because he opens doors for us for this world. Not because he leads us to do exciting, adventurous, reckless things. He doesn't. That's what Satan and false teachers want you to do. To do things that are exciting and damn the consequences. Who cares who else it hurts? Well, the consequences of our sin are damning. But Jesus, what door does he open? He opens the door to heaven. When we come to him saying, I have sinned, does he say, what is it to me? You see to it. Our shepherd, because he cares for the sheep, cares for you, because he knows us each by name, he says, what? I saw to it. What's it to me? Everything, because you're everything to me. I saw to it on the cross. I took away that sin so you could have life and could have it abundantly. What kind of voice is it that encourages us to follow our sinful desires? What kind of voice is it that encourages us to not consider how our actions are going to affect others, to be reckless and damn the consequences? That's the voice of a thief and a murderer. That's the voice of Satan. That's the voice of our sinful flesh. And it sounds so appealing to our sinful flesh to just do what we want, to bristle when God says, if you know what's good for you, how dare you think you know what's good for me? Only God knows what is good for us, because we are sheep, stupid, getting ourselves into trouble unless we are constantly watched. But the voice of our shepherd calls us and taught us, and so now we know his voice. We know his voice. We hear it in Scripture when it tells us our sin is forgiven because I saw to it. That's what Jesus says. And when he is, yes, sometimes stern with us, saying, don't eat that. That's bad for you. Don't do those things. That is sin that will hurt others and will hurt you. We know that voice is stern, and yet behind that sternness is love. Why did he came? Why do thieves come? Well, thieves and robbers come, as Jesus says, to hurt and destroy. That's why false teachers come. That's why Satan comes. That's why the world comes. But why does Jesus come? Why did he come to this earth to live the unglamorous, painful, dirty life that he led, and yet doing it without sin? He came so you could have life and could have it abundantly. Not the pale imitations of life we have in this world. This world with COVID-19, this world with all anxieties, this world with all the pains, this world with all the fears, this world with our sinful nature that we can't get rid of, that desires all kinds of things that are bad for us, things that hurt, even those we love. He came to give us not that life, but life abundantly. We have a part of that abundant life even now because we know the voice of our shepherd, because we follow him. We have a part of that abundant life in knowing my sin is forgiven, in being led by the Spirit to better identify that is bad for me, to better know the voice of our shepherd is fun, that this is good. And he came to give us that absolute, perfect, abundant life in heaven, where there is no anxiety, no tears, no fears, where there is no longer our sinful nature which desires all those bad things, but only joy and peace. So what's good for you? You have it. Your good shepherd and his voice. Amen.